So again, thank you all for coming today. My name is Gwen Sorley, and just a little bit of background for me. I have a master's in education. I was a classroom teacher when I started using play attention back in 1996. So over the past 25 plus years, I've been using play attention with every age from 5 years old all the way up through adulthood. So I do hope my experiences using play attention with lots of different individuals will give you a really good understanding of how the program works and whether or not it'll be the right tool for you. So as I look through this list, I see that there are a lot of people here today who have attended webinars that we've hosted in the past. And as you know, if you've attended some of our past webinars, you know that we cover a lot of tips and strategies on effective tools that you can use or strategies you can implement to help you with areas of organization. We might talk about task completion. We may give you tips like the Pomodoro strategy or the Pomodoro timer. We may talk about how to improve emotion regulation, some tips and strategies for that. So we always touch on different areas of executive function and what you can do to help improve those areas or strategies that you can use. But what's really important is that we remember tips and strategies are good. However, they're not quite enough, right? And probably many of you here can relate to that. Because I've talked to many people in the past who have said, well, I've tried this, I've tried that, and it just doesn't work. So I was talking to one woman not too long ago in a consultation, and she said, everyone keeps telling me, just make a to-do list. And she said, but I know how to make a to-do list. I make a to-do list every single morning. The problem is, at the end of the day, I haven't crossed off anything on my to-do list. Can any of you relate to that? You can click the raise your hand icon or type yes in the chat box if you can. There are a few people raising their hands here. And that's so common. And why is that? Rita says yes with lots of exclamation points. And that's because you know the tips and strategies. You know how to do a to-do list. That's not the problem. The difficulty, the challenge comes with specific cognitive skills you need in order to follow through with that to-do list, right? So I can teach you how to keep a to-do list, but then I also simultaneously have to teach you how to develop your memory, your working memory, so that you remember you have a to-do list, right? And then I have to work on your ability to sustain your attention so that when you start number one, you are able to stay on that task. And we're going to work on task completion until completion. We're going to work on helping you control your impulsivity so that you don't start number one and then impulsively jump to number three. We also have to work on filtering distractions so that when you start number one, you're not suddenly distracted by the laundry or another work task that you think you absolutely have to do first. Right? There are so many skills that are challenges when you're struggling with ADHD or weak executive function that need to be addressed in order for those strategies to make any sense at all. And you may even see this if you're not here today for yourself, you may be considering play attention for your child, but you may see this with your child because in schools, often you might have a 504 in place. And I'm not saying we shouldn't have 504s. 504s can be great. However, we have to get to the root cause, right? Because if we give your child longer test time, that's not enough. Longer test time is a strategy, right? But simultaneously, we need to help your child develop his or her ability to sustain attention so that when they're in that test, they're able to direct and sustain their attention to the test. We have to make certain that they have a good processing speed so that they're able to process the information in a timely manner. Again, working on impulsivity so they don't just sit down and rush through the work just to get it done. There are so many skills that need to be developed in order for that longer test taking time to make sense. Because if we don't develop skills, then that longer test time just ends up being oftentimes more time to daydream and be off task. So although we want tips and strategies, we also need to develop certain skills. And that's what we're going to talk about today. How can we develop skills in order to help you be successful? So Play Attention specializes in one thing. And we've been doing this one thing for almost 30 years now. We help you reach your goals. So go ahead and share with me today. Why are you here? What are your goals? Are you here because you want to personally work on your own skills so that you're more productive at work? Are you here because you have a child, a really bright child who's just struggling with perhaps getting the homework done or the seat work done, or maybe struggling with peer relationships? Go ahead and type in the chat box why you're here. I know that you're all here for a specific purpose. Or maybe you're a professional and you're here today because you want to help your clients reach their potential and develop those foundational skills they need in order to have strong executive function. Lots of people are typing in their responses. Mia says she's here to help her clients reach their goals. Rachel says, my son, lots coming in. Let me scroll back up to Rachel. My son has troubles in exams. Patricia wants to be more productive at work. Michael says, hi, school counselor trying to support at-risk students. Excellent. Forrest says, I am personally struggling at work with my tasks and the ability to be efficient in my work. Anna says, I'm a professional who wants to help my clients. Christy, to improve executive function and productivity. Rita says, I'm convinced if I was not lacking in my executive function skills, I would not have been laid off. That's a good point, Rita. Guadalupe says, to help my students develop skills that will make them less reliable on interventions. That's exactly what we were talking about. Eventually, we want those interventions in place, right? But we want to move them to being more independent so that you're not serving as their self-regulation. You're helping them develop that. And Guadalupe, that's exactly what we're going to talk about today, how you can do that. Jody, I want to be more productive both at work and home, as well as be able to help clients reach their potential and work in the workplace. Kathleen says, I want to be able to stick with a task and not be distracted. Deborah, I want to help my students formerly incarcerated. That is very good, because we know that many individuals who have been incarcerated do struggle with ADHD and weak executive function. So this is such an important role you play. Jeanette, our 15-year-old son, ADHD, and 10-year-old daughter, ADD, needs help with executive function skills. Jacqueline, I am new at this, recently diagnosed, as well as my kids, and I want to learn. Good. Connor, tidy and organize my home, affecting mental health. Jeanette, executive function skills. Noreen, I'm an adult inattentive ADHD struggling with procrastination and distraction. Rachel says she would also like to understand so that she can help. Pam, I am here because I need help regulating my time at home and not get so distracted. I have ADD. And this name got kind of clicked off, so I can't see your whole name. Cabrini, I don't know what the last part of that. Sorry if I mispronounced your name. Would love to help my students improve their executive function skills. I also could use better abilities to improve my efficiency at work and home. Bianca, work less with better results for mental wellness. That is so important, because it does, that's the title of this webinar, right? Let's improve executive function and stop working so hard, because it may seem at times that you're working so hard just to keep up, but you feel at the end of the day, you're still not getting enough done. And that can really drain on your mental health. So that's important what Bianca brings up. So a lot of you too here, I want to mention, brought up the fact that you're interested in using this with yourself and your child or children. So that you can work with play attention, whether you're 5 years old, as I mentioned earlier, or 105. We know now through neuroplasticity that the brain is moldable, it's shapeable. It used to be thought that after the ripe old age of 9, your brain didn't change that much. But now we know that that is not true. That if we provide you the right challenge, you can develop these skills despite your current wiring. We know that age is not a factor. We know that labels like ADHD or autism or anxiety or TBI, those are not a factor. If we provide you the right challenge, you can create these new neural pathways that are required for strong executive function. And that's what we do. We pinpoint the different cognitive skills that right now may be weak for you and customize a neurocognitive training plan so that you can reach your goal. Many of you said that end goal is to be more productive. And we can help you develop all of those skills. We know that we can help you because we've been doing this, as I mentioned, for 30 years. We were actually the pioneers of neurocognitive training. We developed the genre. It was back in the 1980s when our founder of the company, Peter Freer, he started researching different attention training techniques that were being done. So he started looking at different techniques because he was working with individuals, both children and adults with weak executive function. And he came across the work that NASA was doing, Dr. Pope and Dr. Paulson. They were working with their pilots and astronauts, and they were using feedback technology to help them develop those peak states. And they were integrating feedback technology with their simulator training. So let me explain that a little bit further. They were actually monitoring the brain states of their pilots and astronauts while they were doing their flight simulator training, so that if they were in their maximum attentive state, then all of the controls were automatic. It was very easy for them to do their job. But if they became distracted, if they became stressed or anxious, they weren't as attentive, then all of the controls became very sluggish and it got harder for them to do their job. So they were getting constant and immediate feedback regarding their attentive state while doing their simulator training, so that they learned how to control their attention, how to control that brain state. That meant they were in their peak attention because that makes their job easier. And so our founder thought, well, that's brilliant. If I could integrate that feedback technology with specific cognitive skills and behaviors that my clients need in order to have success on a daily basis, then I have a complete program. So that was the foundation of play attention. And that's what makes us unique and effective. It's what we teach and how we teach it. Because play attention is the only program, and I'm sure many of you, some of you here today said this is the beginning of your journey. Some of you have tried or looked into other programs. And play attention is the only program that integrates feedback-based technology with cognitive skill training and behavior shaping to provide you with the most comprehensive approach available. This is our body wave technology. You see it on our website, but here it is in my hand. It looks a little large when I hold it so close. So here's that body wave technology. You'd wear that armband right on your arm. On the back, there are 3 sensors. Now, this is the important part to remember. Those sensors are monitoring your brain activity that tells us how attentive you are. And then that information is given over to the computer, where you're allowed to control all of the cognitive exercises just with your mind, or more specifically, your attention alone. And you receive constant and immediate feedback as to whether or not you truly are focused and paying attention. And that's a really important first step in the learning process. Because right now, if you look at your child or your clients or your partner, and you say, I need you to pay attention, what do they typically say back to you? Go ahead and type in the chat box. If you say, I need you to pay attention, what do they typically say back to you? I want to see if you're hearing the same thing I used to hear from my clients. Good. A lot of you are saying the same thing. And it may even be your typical response if someone says to you, I want you to pay attention. I need you to pay attention. Guadalupe says, I am paying attention. Mia, I am. Rita, I'm listening. Jody, I'm trying. Mark says, I am paying attention. And Forrest says, what are you talking about? I am listening. So a lot of you, Jeanette, I am. A lot of you are saying that's what you hear or that's what you say. And it's so true. You know, many of you here, you think you're paying attention, or your child or your clients, they truly think they are paying attention, but you just haven't developed what it takes for you personally. So what we're doing is we're taking that very abstract concept and making it concrete and controllable. So you actually see your attentive state in real time. You feel what you're doing, and you're allowed to practice very specific cognitive skills. So this is really important because I'm going to put a poll up on the screen, and I want you to answer this poll for me. Oh, that's not, let me go back here. All right, you should be able to see my poll on the screen. And I want you to tell me, how do you or your children or your clients learn best? Is it through lecture, or is it hands-on or experiential learning? So two different responses. How do you or your children or your students learn best? Is it through lecture, or is it experiential learning, which is more hands-on? You should be able to see the poll on screen. If you can't, you can go ahead and type your answer in. Good. Okay. I'm going to close the poll in 3, 2, 1. 95% of you said hands-on experiential learning. And that's obviously very common. 95% of you said you learn best, or your child learns best, through hands-on experience. And that is important to remember, because at school, we try to teach attention through lecture, right? We say, sit still, eyes on me, pay attention. We try to tell you what to do, but it's so abstract. So what neurotechnology does, this neurotechnology where we're actually monitoring brain activity, we actually allow you to experience your attention in real time. So all of the cognitive skills that we address, no matter what you're working on, whether you're working on task completion or auditory processing or social skills, everything is brain enabled, meaning you have to be paying attention in order to activate the activity. If you're not paying attention, then the activity will stop, or the character will go in the wrong direction, and you have to focus back in order to continue. And the reason we do this is because we know that when we are trying to spark brain change, right? Because when we talk about improving executive function, we're really talking about sparking brain change and creating new neural networks that are required for strong executive function. So in order to spark brain change, there are 3 catalysts necessary for brain change. Brain change doesn't just happen. And we incorporate these catalysts into play attention. So of course, the first catalyst that we're talking about is attention. You can have a great teacher. You can have a fantastic life coach or counselor. But if you're having a hard time paying attention to that individual or the process, it's going to be very difficult for you to get maximum benefit. So that's why we make certain that no matter what you work on, you are actively engaged. Okay, so no matter what cognitive exercise you're training on, you have to be paying attention in order to even work in that area. The next is challenge, because we know it's important that you're challenged. If you go into a learning situation and you're 100% successful, you're not going to learn anything because you're already there. So I want you to keep in mind that this body wave armband has what we call an auto adjust algorithm, which means when you put this body wave armband on, we're only looking at your best ability to pay attention. And the bar is set there. If you're able to reach or exceed that level of attention for a given number of seconds, then the bar is raised and you have to focus just that much more in order to be successful. The opposite is true as well. If you are getting fatigued and you're not that successful anymore, you can't reach that same level of attention, we don't want you to be frustrated because you're not going to learn anything if you're completely frustrated. So we bring that bar back down to the last successful level, and then we gradually build you up. So we're constantly keeping you at a challenging yet success-based pace. So challenge is incorporated, attention is incorporated, and finally, deliberate practice. Because when we go into a training situation or a practice situation, many of us will go into that situation and we'll just simply practice what we're really good at. And we need to make certain that we are practicing things that are challenging for us so that we can strive for higher levels of achievement. So we have a deliberate practice model, which means our artificial intelligence, sheer genius, will set a mini goal for you based on your previous performance. So sheer genius will look at your prior data and say, yesterday you completed attention stamina with 80% attention. Today, let's try 82%. And if you do that, you earn a point. So we set small mini goals for you, and that's all automated for you so that you can gradually build yourself up over time. So 3 catalysts necessary for brain change: attention, challenge, and deliberate practice. And all 3 catalysts are incorporated into play attention. So as I mentioned, we've been doing this for almost 3 decades. That integration, my mind went blank there for a moment, integration of feedback technology with cognitive skill training and behavior shaping. But Tufts University School of Medicine wanted to know, is that integration important? Or can we give you a series of cognitive exercises, or what you hear a lot about as brain games, and get the same results? So they went into the Boston Public School District and they had 3 different groups of students, all identified as ADHD. The first group received play attention, so they had full integration. The second group received just cognitive exercises, so brain games on the computer, no feedback technology, and no behavior shaping. And the third was their control, and they received no intervention at all. And at the end of the study, the play attention students were the only students that showed global improvements in all areas, including academic, social, behavioral, and executive function. They were also the only students that if they started the study and they were on play attention, because some of the students were on, some of them were not on medication. If they were on medication and they were in the play attention group, those students had an average decrease in their medication, where the other 2 groups had an average increase. And that goes back to skill building. If we can help you develop the skills that you lack, there may be less of a necessity to mask symptoms. So you can use play attention whether you're on medication or not on medication. Medication works for some people by controlling symptoms. The difficulty with medication is that it doesn't teach skills and it does not change behaviors. So we don't want to medicate and fail to educate. We want to use this time to help you develop the skills that you lack. And that's what play attention can do. Play attention can teach the skills that medication alone cannot teach. So if you're interested in looking at those studies, just type in Tufts in the chat box, and I'll make certain that you do get a copy of those studies once this webinar is at the end. We'll take the list and we'll follow up with all of your requests. So if you want the Tufts University research studies, just type in Tufts and we'll send those to you. There was also a 6-month follow-up to make certain that even once they graduated the program, those skills were maintained, which they were. Okay, great. And I do see your request, so we will follow up. So again, I wanted to share with you one of the screens, one of our exercises. You'll notice here that my client on the screen, this is John, and he has that body wave armband on. So before I go any further about what he's doing here, I want to do another quick poll because I want to make certain that everyone is on the same page. So tell me, you see that body wave armband on his arm. What is that body wave armband monitoring? Is it A, eye movement, B, breathing, C, brain activity, or D, FM radio? You can go ahead and plug in your response here, or you can type in your response. It's really important that I make certain at this point, everyone is on the same page. What does that body wave armband, remember, this is the neurotechnology, what does it monitor? Is it eye movement, breathing, or brain activity? Okay, I'm going to close the poll in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so 86% of you were correct. And so I want you to really listen. This body wave armband is monitoring brain activity. That brain activity tells us how attentive you are. And then that information is given over to the computer. Because remember, we're teaching you how to develop your ability to sustain your attention, and all of the cognitive exercises are based on that. So breathing and eye movement, we're not monitoring that. We're monitoring where attention actually occurs, and that's in the brain, right? So breathing helps you. If you can calm your breath, it helps you get into that attentive state, but we can only see if you are actually in that attentive state if we are looking at specific brain activity. So Leanne asks, how does that armband monitor brain activity? So if you think, Leanne, what attention is, right now, you have billions of neurons firing in your brain all at different times. But when all of when all of those neurons fire at one time, when they all fire in synchrony, you give off a very specific electromagnetic signal. And that signal is what we know of as attention. And that's what that body wave armband is listening for. It's listening for that moment when you give off that very specific electromagnetic signal. Okay, that's how that body wave armband is listening and then giving you that real-time feedback. So you see on the screen, my client is playing attention stamina. This is teaching him how to direct and sustain his attention at will. So that submarine you see, the yellow submarine you see right there, starts at the top of the screen. Once he's focused and paying attention, he's able to push that character down to the bottom of the ocean just with his mind alone, just his attentive state. So now he knows this is what it means for me to pay attention. And he tries to keep it down there as long as possible. If he gets distracted, and distraction can be a variety of things. It could be that his mind starts to wander. It could be that somebody walks into the room and he can't filter that noise. It could be a self-distracting behavior like fidgeting. Immediately that character will start to float up because he's no longer as attentive. And then he has to control that behavior, control that daydreaming, focus back in order to push it back down to the bottom of the ocean. So that's the experience I was talking about. That ability to actually see your attentive state in real time is so empowering, because if you've been told for years, you can't pay attention, you never pay attention, you're actually rewarded for paying attention. So you can think of it as kind of like a piece of exercise equipment for the brain. You're working areas right now that are weak for you. And by providing you with that constant and immediate feedback regarding your attentive state, you're able to develop that self-regulation and self-monitoring you need in order to recognize when you're paying attention, recognize when you're not paying attention, and more importantly, when you're not paying attention, you'll know how to correct it because you've had an opportunity to actually practice it. Now, attention, when we talk about ADHD or weak executive function, of course, attention is just the tip of the iceberg, right? There are all of these other skills that you brought up earlier that we want to develop. So if you see on your screen right now, there are several different cognitive skills that we can incorporate into your program. You won't necessarily need all of these. That's where the customization comes in. So we're going to get to learn more about you or your child or your clients, and we're going to set up your profile accordingly to address the areas that are weakest for you. But remember, in order to activate any of the exercises, if you're working on task completion or auditory processing or social skills, they're all activated with your attentive state. So although we may be working on social skills, which is your ability to pick on social cues and respond accordingly, you have to be paying attention to that social cue in order to even see the social cue. So everything comes back to your attentive state. There are 6 core cognitive skills that come standard with your program. So everyone here will receive these. That includes attention stamina, your ability to direct and sustain your attention at will. Visual tracking, that's a great one if the teacher's ever said, you know, she does great when I stand right next to her. But as soon as I walk away, she's out the window and out the door. And then she has that diffused attention where she's paying attention to a little bit of everything. So we're going to work on staying very focused and visually tracking that teacher as he or she moves about the room. Task completion. This is great for homework that should take 15 minutes, but takes 2 hours. Being able to start and complete in a timely manner. Or for all of the adults here today, that's for those of you who say, I start a million things, I finish nothing. That's what we're going to work on, your ability to start and complete. Short-term memory is your ability to remember dates, names, facts, just filtering distractions, because attention deficit is really a misnomer, isn't it? It's not a lack of attention. You have great attention. The problem is you're paying attention to bits and pieces of everything. So we want to work on staying focused to what's important and filtering out all of that unnecessary stimuli. And then transfer and generalization. This is our exercise called the academic bridge. So you notice here that my student has the body wave armband on, but she's not looking at the computer screen like my student John was. In this particular activity, she's working on her homework. She's working on a report. And as long as she's paying attention to her report, she's going to hear from the computer, good, great. If she starts to drift, she'll hear focus. And then she knows she's not in that state she needs to be in order to process and complete that assignment. So we're asking you to take all of the skills you've learned within play attention and apply them to your real work. I'm going to give you a great example of how we modified this with one of my clients recently who was a high school English teacher. She is a high school English teacher, and she had been struggling with grading papers. So she has been spending 2 days on the weekend trying to get through grading papers. Not because she doesn't know how to grade papers, it's because the process is so hard for her. She has a really difficult time sustaining her attention to that process. And so we incorporated Academic Bridge, and she learned so much through that immediate feedback. She learned things that she thought was helping her, they were not helping her. She learned what things in the environment were distracting her or how she distracted herself internally. And she learned how to control that through immediate feedback that only neurotechnology can provide you. So she started learning all of these different things about her ability and how to control her attention, how to bring herself back. And now she's down to 2 hours on the weekend instead of 2 days on the weekend. So we can develop a training protocol that incorporates real work activities, real life activities to help you develop that ability to sustain your attention. Patricia asks a really good question, and it really leads into my next screen because she is asking about how short-term memory, she says, is short-term memory working memory? So you see in the core, you have short-term memory. We also have a series of masterclass modules. And in the masterclass modules, these are options for you that you can incorporate at any time. And you'll notice, Patricia, that the very first one is working memory. And working memory is one of our most popular add-on modules. It is different than short-term memory. Short-term memory is information you hold for about 15 to 30 seconds and you give back in the same way. So if you and I met at a conference and I said, "Hi, my name is Gwen," and you said, "Hi, Gwen," that's short-term memory. I gave you information, you gave information back to me in the exact same way. Working memory is a higher level thinking skill where you actually have to take in information, hold that information on your mental sticky note in order to give a response. So for your child, that might be reading a paragraph, holding that information in their working memory so that they can then summarize that information they just read in their own words. That's working memory. Higher levels of math, being able to take in information and use that information to give a response. For adults, that's often, I walked into the room, and once I got into that room, I had no idea why I was there. I know I went into that room for something, but when I got in there, I had no idea why I was there. That's a lapse in working memory. So I hope that helps, Patricia. If you need more information on working memory, just let me know. We have a recorded webinar on working memory, and working memory is a part of executive function. So if you want that webinar on working memory, just type in WM or working memory. I'll send you a link for that webinar as well, which goes in a little bit more about working memory specifically. So the other masterclass modules, working memory, as I mentioned, that is our most popular. Auditory processing is our second most popular. That's the ability to follow through with multiple step instructions. So if you look at your child and you say, go to your room, put away your sneakers, bring down your jacket, he's able to follow through with those instructions without being redirected or reminded. Social skills, hand-eye coordination, sorry, I skipped that one, is all about fine motor control, so handwriting. Social skills helps with picking up on social cues, processing that information, and giving a response. Because a lot of times the difficulty we have with peer relationships is the fact that we're simply not paying attention to the social cue. So we're going to specifically work on that ability to sustain your attention to another person's social cue, process, control your impulsive response, and then respond. Mental math is more for first grade and second grade addition and subtraction. Spatial memory, if you find that you are constantly losing your car keys or your phone or your wallet, that's a great one for you. And finally, mindfulness. Now, we hear so much about how mindfulness helps with the symptoms of ADHD, and that is true. However, how many of you can raise your hand or type in yes in the chat box. How many of you have tried mindfulness and you have found that it just doesn't work for you? Maybe you tried mindfulness for 10 minutes and at the end of that 10 minutes, you just wrote your grocery list in your mind. Any of you experienced that? Jody says it works half the time. Rita says yes. So many of you say that you're struggling. Some of you are, Kathleen says she gets frustrated. Dan says yes all the time. Michaela says it works for her. So that's great. But many of you say that you've tried it, but it just doesn't seem to work for you. And that's very common because mindfulness, although it can help with the symptoms of ADHD and anxiety, it's difficult, isn't it? Because we can't look at someone with ADHD or that running mind and say, now I want you to practice mindfulness, because mindfulness is hard. It's hard for all of us, but especially if you have that running mind. You can develop it if we give you an accommodation. Because remember, and this might be what might be frustrating for many of you, because many of you have said it's frustrating. The hallmark of mindfulness, and you'll always hear this, is if distracting thoughts come in, it's okay. That's going to happen. Just acknowledge them and let them go. The difficulty is we latch on to that distraction, right? And then we go down that rabbit hole. And that's where we end up writing our grocery list instead of staying in the present moment. So what we do is we give you a visual representation so you don't follow those distractions. So you'll see in one particular exercise, there's a lotus flower. Once you have your mind in the present moment, you're able to start opening the petal on the flower. If you start thinking, when do I have to pick up the kids? When's my next meeting? What do I have to pick up at the store later? When's my phone call? That petal will start to close because you're no longer in the present moment and you have to bring yourself back in order to continue. So we're giving you an opportunity to actually develop mindfulness because we're guiding you. We're giving you that visual representation of what exactly it means to stay in the present moment. So really great application. So all of these cognitive skills, remember, they lay the foundation for strong executive function. So you may be wondering, well, I didn't see emotion regulation, and that's one of the processes of executive function. I didn't see organization, and that's one of the processes. But remember, the processes of executive function require skills. So you can't just say, I want to improve controlling my emotions, because look at all the skills that are required for that. In order to improve your ability to control your emotions, you have to be able to pay attention to the entire situation. You have to be able to process that information. You have to be able to improve your working memory so that you can draw on prior experiences so you can evaluate what response to give or evaluate which strategy you should use in this moment. We have to improve your ability to control your impulsiveness, impulsivity, so that you're not just impulsively responding with that first emotion that comes to mind. So in order to improve that process of emotion regulation, we have to improve attention stamina, impulse control, processing speed, working memory. All of those skills you're going to be working on in every single play attention session. So every time you do a play attention session, you're improving executive function. I hope that makes sense to you. And if you're thinking, I don't know where to start with all of those different cognitive areas, we do have assessments available. So some of you may have assessments you've already done and you want to share with us to help us customize your plan. Great. If you're not quite sure, if you're not sure what to incorporate into your program, we have 2 assessments available. These are simply options for you. One is called the Brief, which is a behavior rating inventory of executive function. The other is Focus, which is a norm reference test of attentional control. If you do either the Focus exam or the Brief assessment, or both, we need about a 40-minute block of time to review the results with you and talk about a customized plan based on that. So that is an option for you. If you want more information about the assessments or you want to actually register, each assessment is $50. We are offering 20% off right now. But remember, if you do the assessments, we do need about a 40-minute block of time to review the results with you and talk about the different areas. So if you're interested in learning more or registering for just the assessment part, type in assessments and we'll reach out to you. Make certain you type in assessments because I can't see the raise your hand afterwards. I won't have record of it. But those are a great way to learn a little bit more about yourself or your child, because sometimes you don't know where to start. So assessments kind of give us that path where we can look at, because sometimes you'll think, well, is he impulsive or is he just 8 years old, right? So we can look at more of the severity of each area and which area do we need to address really, and which area is something that we don't need to address. So really important in that process. We can also just have a conversation with you. As I mentioned, the assessments are just simply options for you. And that's how we really pinpoint the program. Now, once we pinpoint and set up your profile, when you start your program, you'll have everything you need to run your program. So you'll have your body wave technology, whether you're a home client or a professional client, you'll have that body wave technology, because remember, you have to activate every cognitive exercise with your attentive state. You'll have your customized neurocognitive training plan. You'll have behavior shaping. I didn't touch on this, but we have a great behavior shaping program. If you are trying to work on helping your child or yourself or your clients control behaviors not conducive to good attention, like skin picking or nail biting, chewing on the shirt, all of those behaviors we can work on within play attention, because you get a one-to-one correlation on how certain behaviors affect your attention. And then we can use that to help you start to learn how to control it. Dan, yes, everyone here is going to receive the recording. So tomorrow, those recordings go out. So make certain you check your email tomorrow to receive the recording. And then in addition to the cognitive training and the behavior shaping, everyone here is assigned a personal executive function coach. That's one of our coaches here on staff to assist you every step of the way. So not only will that individual help you set up your profile, but we'll take you through a training session where we get on Zoom with you and we take you through a practice session just to make sure you're real comfortable with everything before you start working on your sessions officially. And from that point, you have a lifetime membership, because we want to make certain that we work with you as long as necessary. And even once you graduate the program, if you want to continue using the program for peak performance, you can do that. You own the program and your support is unlimited. So let's talk about some key areas that we want you to keep in mind when you're thinking about starting a program. You want to work at least an hour per week. Now that hour can be broken up. You can do 2 30-minute sessions. A lot of our families will do maybe 4 15-minute sessions or 3 20-minute sessions. Most of our professionals working with clients schedule 2 30-minute sessions. So whatever works best for you. You'll start to see good results after about 6 weeks of consistent training. You'll notice that you are more attentive, that you remembered to actually do certain tasks throughout the day, that you're completing more, that your child's more engaged, that they're less impulsive. You're going to start noticing these small steps of improvement. But what you're not seeing is what's actually occurring in the brain. And that's that you're causing these new neural pathways to become formed. And in the beginning, those networks are weak. That means one day it'll look like you're doing beautifully, and the next day it'll look like you've never heard the word attention before. There's going to be up and down. That's learning. But through the process of practice and repetition, you're actually strengthening those networks to a point of permanency. Permanency typically takes about 40 hours total. So if you're working an hour per week, I would plan on about 10 months of consistent training. So everyone learns differently. So around that, thanks, Deborah, around that 40-hour mark, you and your executive function coach will get together and you will talk about the different areas. We'll make certain you're at all the advanced skill options, maybe do another focus and brief assessment to make certain everything's transferred and generalized. If everything looks good, we'll graduate you from the program. If it looks like there's more work to be done, we simply customize the plan and we keep going. The important thing to remember is you do have that lifetime membership. So whether it takes you 10 months or 16 months, we continue working as long as necessary. And as I mentioned, even once you graduate, you can continue using the program. Now, the program's very comprehensive, but our artificial intelligence does a lot of the work for you. So Sheer Genius is going to set your curriculum each day, set those mini goals every day for that deliberate practice model, track and award points so that if you're doing a reward system, those points go right directly into your rewards program, and Sheer Genius tracks all of your rewards and your points and monitors progress. So at any point, you can go into your dashboard and you can see all of the progress in all of the different cognitive skill areas and the different data points. We track a lot of data. So you're going to be able to look at your percentage of attention. You're going to look at your duration. You're going to look at your recovery speed. You're going to look at your impulse control, your ability to deal with distractors. All of that data is tracked for you. And your executive function coach will review that data at any time in your process with you. If you'd like, we'll jump on Zoom and review that data with you. all of that's included. So again, in order to reach your goals, a lot of you wanted to be more productive. You wanted to help your child be successful at school. You want to help with relationships. You want to help with impulse control and your ability to improve executive function and self-regulation overall. We need to set up a very customized program that can address all of these areas specifically. So we want you to have those tips and strategies, but in order to get those true long-term outcomes, we need to set up a specific training plan that will work for you and help you develop all of those foundational skills you need in order to reach your goals. And that's what we can do. So there are two different programs. Some of you are here that are available to you. Some of you here are home clients. Some of you are professional clients. So the home program and the professional program both come with everything we talked about. The difference is in the user license. So the home system comes with a user license for 2 people. That means at any one time, you can have 2 family members enrolled in the program. Those user licenses are reusable, and you can always upgrade your user license. Each additional user license is just $50 for the home clients. The professional version comes with an unlimited user license. So if you're thinking, I have 25 clients I could enroll tomorrow, you will receive an unlimited user license so you can enroll all 25 of those clients. And you never have to repurchase a user license. You just continue adding clients as needed. Patricia, the home system comes standard with 2. So again, you'll receive everything you need to run your program, the body wave technology, your neurocognitive training program, your full support, and your lifetime membership. Thanks so much. If you're still here, thank you so much for attending today, and we look forward to chatting with you very soon. Take care.